Russell Wilson extends the hands he has. Wilson, quick throw. And it's intercepted. Intercepted by Malcolm Butler. Butler has it at the one. Malcolm Butler stepped in front of the throw. And the Patriots have possession with 20 seconds to go.
And that was the call a year ago in Super Bowl 49. The New England Patriots in a memorable win against the Seattle Seahawks. Malcolm Butler, the hero in that game at the goal line. Super Bowl 49 went to the New England Patriots, but we'll have a new champion this year as the Denver Broncos knocked off the New England Patriots in the AFC Championship. Now they get a date with the Carolina Panthers, the team of destiny, if you will, from this season, who have torn through the NFC side of the playoffs. Most recently, a blowout win against the Cardinals, and you are tuned in to Upon Further Review right here on 90.3 WMSC FM, of course streaming on WMSCradio.com, on Twitter at UFRWMSC and UFR and WMSC Sports if you want to send us a tweet. Taking you up to the 4 o'clock hour with Super Bowl 50 coverage. Obviously, a ton to get to in this game, a ton to get to on all of the shows that we've had all week long. You had Saul McChesney kicking things off on Monday with his show, SMC Sports, same time as mine, 1 to 4, and we did Super Bowl coverage on that show, so he spent 3 hours breaking the game down. Now it's my turn. I'll give my spin on things. You'll probably hear from Sean later on, joining us in studio to go back over some of the things he talked about. Might hear from John Galletley later on as well. At 3:15, you're going to hear near the end of the show from ESPN3 reporter and radio man Corey Clark, who's also the sports director of the college radio station at Indiana State University. So interesting to get his perspective as far as, you know, what Super Bowl coverage they've been doing, how they're handling it with their station. But for now, again, you're tuned into Upon Further Review. I'm your host, Sean Martin. 973-655-4256, your number to call throughout the show. And this is our Super Bowl edition up to the 4 o'clock hour here on WMSC. So, as mentioned, Super Bowl matchup, Broncos and the Panthers, and here's just a little bit of how we got here from these two teams.
Here's Brady, rolling and throwing. It's tipped in the air, and it's intercepted. It's intercepted by Roby. He lost the football back at the 20, but it doesn't matter. It was tipped by Talib, and the Denver defense saves it at the end. Picked again. Kuechly for the touchdown.
Approaching the top of the 2 o'clock hour on WMSC, you're back with Saul Martin and Upon Further Review, our Super Bowl 50 edition of the show, getting you ready for the Carolina Panthers and the Denver Broncos in San Francisco. Going to be a very fun game. And joining me now here in the WMSC studios, we have WMSC Engineering Director and host of Tech and Tunes every Thursday from 10 to 1 p.m. So those of you that are up late on Thursdays and catch that. So for now, he's with us here in studio as we, again, approach the top of the 2 o'clock hour. Nick Francioso, our Engineering Director. Nick, how are you doing?
Doing good. What's up?
Not much. Saw you were walking around the station and figured we'd pull you in here. You know, this is a great show of Super Bowl 50 edition, that is, to just pull random people in because, I
don't know anything about sports.
But because, like I've said, everybody has an interest in the Super Bowl for one reason or another.
Ads.
Everyone's either watching it for the ads or, the food they're going to be eating during it, or, for me and for myself and the other sports people you'll hear from throughout the day for the game itself and the X's and O's and all that fun stuff. So just tell me a little bit about, as we drag you in here, your Super Bowl experience, what this game means to you, obviously not from a huge football perspective, but I'm sure, you've watched tell us how many years in a row you've watched the game and kind of what you've learned from it, the experience of it, and, what you look forward to, the ads, like you've said, and those kinds of things.
I mean, from the ad perspective, the only thing I really look forward to is just seeing the different aspects of creativity that the companies put in, because as we all know, these ads aren't cheap.
Oh, no.
So if they're spending millions of dollars for just 30 seconds on air, I like to see how much creativity they can actually shove into a little 30-second period. We wrote our paper on the Cowboys last semester, and I actually ironically learned a lot about just football in general. So maybe now when I watch a Super Bowl this year, I'll actually be able to pick up more from it. So I'm actually kind of looking forward to it.
Well, with that, I guess that leads me to my next question. I wasn't going to ask you for a pick, but we got to get a pick from everyone that comes in. So, Broncos, Panthers, Denver, and Carolina, 2 very good defenses, obviously. Cam Newton versus Peyton Manning. Let's get you our first Super Bowl pick here of our Upon Further Review Super Bowl 50 edition, and comes from someone who barely knows football. Of course, I'm going to give my pick near the end of the show, so don't worry about that. But for now, Nick, pick.
Oh, man, I'm gonna have to say the Panthers.
Mm-hmm.
Only because that was like my high school football team name. So that's the only reason I'm just picking Panthers. Is just on that premise alone.
So for various reasons, Nick's pick is the Carolina Panthers. They are the favorites, of course, still in this game. They opened at about 4 points. I think it's still around there. We got one pick in the book. Nick Francioso, our WMSC engineering director, has chose the Carolina Panthers. You can make your picks as well on the phone number, once again, 973-655-4256. We'll approach the top of the 2 o'clock hour, come back and talk more Super Bowl 50 on Upon Further Review with Sean Martin, 90.3 WMSC, WMSCradio.com, after this.
The Super Bowl is right around the corner. It is the AFC champion Denver Broncos against the NFC champion Carolina Panthers at Levi Stadium in Santa Clara, California in the 50th anniversary of the Super Bowl. I had the opportunity to sit down with WMSC Sports own Emma Simo, WMSC Assistant Sports Director Sean Martin, and the WMSC General Manager Annabella Poland to get their takes on the importance of the 50th anniversary of the big game, as well as what they are excited about for the event itself. What are you guys excited about for February 7th when we see the 50th celebration of America's greatest game, the Super Bowl?
I'm just excited for, the way these two teams match up. I'm sure we're going to spend time on our shows breaking this down, and, I haven't done a ton of it yet as far as looking at, I want to get to some film on these games and kind of look at some more of the matchups, but I do think this is a very intriguing matchup. You have a lot of moving parts on the Panthers defense. You have a fast Denver defense. You got 2 defenses to talk about. You got quarterbacks to talk about on the offensive side. It all starts there. You have plenty of other playmakers there as well, so there's a lot of players to look at, a lot of players to analyze in this Super Bowl, and, we're going to start that soon and run with it all the way up until the game, and then sit back and see how our predictions turned out. So I'm looking forward to that whole process.
I just get so excited for the whole experience of the Super Bowl. I love the game. I love the gathering. I love everything. I love the commercials because they make it go faster. I just love the, waiting for the game to come back on. I love everything about it. But I think the matchup is going to be great. I think everything is just going to go awesome.
I personally loving to plan events. I think this is one of the best events planned in history. They do put on a good show before, during, and after. So I'm excited to see all of that. The combination of a fantastic game with great music, parties leading to it, like Guy Fieri doing his tailgate cooking party for $700. Some of the food he's pitching for that party is amazing. I have to tell you, there is steak sandwich stations with like hogs and mac and cheese and bar, and it's all of his specialty.
Making me hungry.
You better leave your diet behind. And the tickets are $700 for that one, but it seems like worth your while. So food is always good, and I can't wait to see the results. A good game is always the best part.
Yeah, I'm definitely excited for the game, obviously. I think that's what I'm most excited about. I'm excited for the gathering, the food. I'm excited for the halftime show. I'm excited for the whole thing. And especially this matchup, 3rd straight year that the number 1 teams from each conference will face off in the Super Bowl. Denver and Carolina, despite what our pools may say, if you're a betting guy for the playoffs, I think to everybody this is the matchup we all wanted to see. And finally, because this is the matchup we all wanted to see, again, everybody who either is at least, a Peyton Manning fan, a guy who wants to see Denver win, or just anybody who just loves the sport wants to see Peyton Manning hold up the Vince Lombardi trophy for the very last time. It would be great, and it would be an unbelievable way to end his career. That's what I'm really looking forward to see if Peyton Manning can do it one more time. He's done it before. He hasn't done it in 9 years, but I'm very curious, and I'm excited to watch Peyton Manning play, and we know will be his very last Super Bowl. His last game, most likely, but I think we can all be betting on this one that this is the very last time he'll play on this night. All right, guys, I thank you very much for joining me for this feature. I really do appreciate it. Super Bowl 50 will be played Sunday, February 7th. Kickoff is at 6:30 p.m. at Levi Stadium. It is the Denver Broncos versus the Carolina Panthers in America's biggest game on its 50th anniversary. I am Sean McChesney for WMSC Sports. On the field, on the court, on the ice, we got you covered.
We are just 4 short days away from Super Bowl 50 between the Carolina Panthers, Denver Broncos, and joining me now in studio, you just heard him on that feature. You heard him on Monday here at the same time on WMSC on SMC Sports, is the WMSC Sports Director. So we go from the engineering director who didn't know much about football to the to the 2 sports directors, both named Sean, here in the studios.
What's going on, Sean? Thanks for having me.
To talk some more football. And review, we're going to get Sean McChesney's pick, which is?
All right, I'm going to go with Denver in the upset. Obviously, you can't take anything away from Carolina's season. 17-1 doesn't happen by accident. But, Sean, like we said when I came on earlier, there's just something about this Carolina team, man, that I don't think they're going to be able to figure out with Denver. Mm-hmm. You know, you had a lot of games like the Giants, Seattle twice, New Orleans, Atlanta in the loss. You know, this team, for whatever reason, you know, they can finish the second half, but barely hanging on. There were so many games this year where they would be up by 1 score at the win, when at the halftime they were up by 3. So I do have a very uneasy feeling. Not saying that Carolina's overrated. They earned this 17-1 season. They earned the right to be called NFC champions this year. They earned the right to play in Super Bowl 50. But, you know, I think Peyton Manning is going to make enough plays to get the job done. Look for guys like DeMarcus Ware and Von Miller. I believe they'll be the 2 guys to be able to collapse the pocket with Cam Newton with nowhere to go. I expect Denver's defense to stop the run. I don't expect a lot from Jonathan Stewart. I don't expect a lot from Cam Newton running. Maybe late in the game, but definitely not at the beginning. I expect Denver's defense to be the X factor in this one. And then again, in Peyton Manning's possible last game, if he's got the ball with 2 minutes left, he will not lose. That, I believe, will be an absolute guarantee. I'm taking Denver in the upset, 24-17.
All right, so a close game, an exciting one by the sounds of it, if all those things play out. So now we're split on picks. Nick Franciosa, our WMSC Engineering Director, has the Carolina Panthers. Saul McChesney, our WMSC Sports Director, has the Denver Broncos. Taking his place now in studio is Don Gouletly. We'll get his pick at some point later, and we'll get my pick as well. But for now, we're going to step aside again, come back, and continue our coverage on Upon Further Review. Approaching the top of the 3 o'clock hour here on 90.3 FM WMSC. Online, WMSCradio.com, on Twitter, WMSC Sports, UFR, WMSC. Saul Martin with you in studio with John Gouletly here in Studio A for our Super Bowl 50 pregame show. He gave his Carolina X Factors, Cam Newton, Luke Kuechly. I gave mine. Also Cam Newton on the offense. On the defense, I went with Thomas Davis, the other linebacker, a strong defensive unit obviously there for Carolina. So we shift on over to the Denver Broncos. And John, let's start with you on this one, and we'll start with the offense, your X Factor type player for Peyton Manning's group.
That's a good question. I think the obvious answer would be Peyton Manning, but I'm not going to go with that here. I actually think it's honestly tougher on Denver's side. I don't think there's as obvious as an X factor over here. But I think if I had to say someone, it would be both the Denver running backs. I feel like I'm not going to name one. I'm going to say both of them there because
that's completely fair.
Because I feel like when Denver gets their running game going, they rely on that more than average teams, I would say. And Peyton Manning knows how to use it well when they're running hot. So I feel like if they can have a big game, get like 150 yards in between them, I feel like that would give Peyton Manning a lot more chances to make a big throw down the field. I feel like those two have to get going in order for Peyton Manning to have success on the offensive side of the ball. It can't be obvious that he has to pass all the time.
Yeah, they're really going to have to. It's really not going to be easy at all against this Carolina front, but you're right, they have to get something going, because I kept saying during the New England game that we were watching together, they're not going to win this game if the running game continues to get nothing out of it. And, you know, sure enough, they found a way to win, and it was an impressive win at that, not taking anything away from that. You really can't when you beat Tom Brady and the Patriots in a playoff scenario like that. But you look at this Denver running game, if it was non-existent against New England, if it's at that same level against Carolina, it'll be a hard time for them to win this game, because it can't be all Peyton Manning throwing this thing, 50, 60 times. He hasn't done that probably once this season, so they need to find something in the running game. It's going to be, next to impossible just on paper looking at it, but no matter what they draw up or how these running backs come out to play, they better be able to get something out of this running game. It's not going to win them the game by any stretch, but just take your 2 to 3 yard gains, keep yourselves ahead of the chains, keep this offense moving. They need this running game to at least be at the effective level that they can expect it to be at come Sunday, or else they're going to be in a lot of trouble relying on Peyton Manning to throw them out of a hole. All right, so that's the good pick there for the X Factor. I'll give mine now. Looking at this offense, mine's Emmanuel Sanders for Denver. He's going to be drawing.
That's an interesting one.
He's going to be drawing the coverages against Josh Norman most likely, and I think he has the type of wide receiver makeup to be able to be a guy that can give Josh Norman a little bit of trouble. He has a little bit of everything when you look at him as a wide receiver. Emmanuel Sanders, who came over from the Steelers. He's a guy who obviously can take the top off of your defense, can run downfield, can make circus catches, can blow by you, like I said, and he can give you some short to intermediate routes with his speed. Obviously, he runs very clean routes, very sharp routes, which can work against Josh Norman, the All-Pro corner there for Carolina, who's just shut guys down all season long and has had his flashes here and there where he'll give up some big plays. But Josh Norman, a guy who will be very good for the Panthers come Super Bowl time. And so you look at it, and Sanders draws the coverage against Norman, and he's going to have to win because Demaryius Thomas is great, we know that, but not a guy that is going to be able to completely dominate this game. You need that speed of Sanders. You need to find a way to get this guy touches, short swing passes, slant routes, and then you can hopefully hit on a few deep balls. Emmanuel Sanders needs to get one, if not two touchdowns in this game for Denver to have a good shot to win. Emmanuel Sanders, my X factor. Josh Norman will be keeping an eye on that matchup all night. So on the Denver side of things, you look at the wide receiver and Sanders as your X factor.
Yeah, and I think that's a good X factor as well, considering Demaryius Thomas is probably going to be getting a lot of attention in terms of wide receivers for Denver. So if Sanders can have an under-the-radar game or stay under the radar before the game, take some pressure off Demaryius Thomas, he could work wonders into being a big influence of Denver possibly going on to win the Super Bowl.
All right, now we'll shift over to the Denver defense. I'll give mine former Cowboy DeMarcus Ware. This pass rush for Denver dominated against New England. That was the story. It should have been the story because it was the number one reason they won that game was A, DeMarcus Ware coming around the left edge, B, Von Miller coming around the right edge. Those two bookend pass rushers were just terrorizing Tom Brady all day long, and DeMarcus Ware, still has it. You can't ask him to do a lot of things anymore, like Wade Phillips would probably like him to. You don't want to ask him to drop it to his zone too much, or play in man coverage against the back as he's gotten slower, as he's gotten older, but there's nothing wrong at all with having a linebacker that you can just tell her to go get the quarterback, or at least try to go get the quarterback every play, and he'll do it, pretty consistently and go get after Cam Newton. And I think that's what these guys are going to do. I don't think you're going to see a lot of coverage out of either of these guys in this game because Cam Newton has to be a guy that you pressure. This Denver defense will not hold up if Cam is all day to throw. So the game plan, it's simple. Obviously, they'll be looking at things and making adjustments and getting ready throughout the week in practice. But all I'd be having Von Miller and DeMarcus Ware doing in practice this week, if I'm Wade Phillips, is just practicing them running around the tackles. They better be ready to just get after Cam Newton in this game. And another interesting thing, John, I think you might remember this, was think back to when DeMarcus Ware was a Cowboy. Do you remember when they had that run of 3 straight NFC East, de facto championship games in Week 17, the one against the Redskins that they played on the road?
Who are you talking about again?
When the Cowboys had their Week 17 game against the Redskins for the NFC Championship.
Yeah.
In that game, think back to the game plan that the Redskins used with RG3, who was, still in his dynamic form with the Redskins. Their game plan was not to block DeMarcus Ware. And, you listen to that and say, wait a second. They won the game by intentionally not blocking who was one of the best outside rush linebackers in the league. And no, what they did was they didn't block him, and then they just let the read option attack DeMarcus Ware pretty much. They knew why waste a blocker on a guy who's probably not going to be able to be blocked. So you leave DeMarcus Ware in the open field, but he has to kind of stop his feet and be in a position where he can stop the pitch man and RG3. And then they left it up to RG3 to make that decision and either pitch it away from Ware, and then Ware would have to chase him, and he's not going to be able to make a tackle from behind, or Ware's going to go with Newton or RG3 and you make that tackle. So I'm interested to see from a X's and O's perspective if Carolina takes a similar game plan on some plays when they do. They actually, they'll run some of those read options with Cam Newton and Jonathan Stewart. I'm interested to see if they take that approach or if they even think of that and say, hey, those guys were unblockable against the Patriots. We're not going to be the first ones to try to block them. You have to block one of them, of course. You can't let both edge rushers come down on you. But we're not going to worry about DeMarcus Ware. Let's just let Cam Newton worry about him and make the right read on those types of plays. So I wonder if we see a little bit of that come Sunday.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think DeMarcus Ware is going to be a pretty big X factor for Denver's defense as well. One of the leading pass rushers for Denver, always getting pressure on the quarterback. Him and Von Miller seem to be such a tandem duo that I would consider it scary to go up against them. I think Carolina can handle them, but at the same time, DeMarcus Ware getting to Newton and reading the options well is going to be key, because it's not enough to go blitz Carolina. You have to read the options.
And if you blitz, you better get to. So.
That too. Carolina is a team that can make you pay for it if you read it wrong. So I really believe if Denver's defense is going to succeed, Miller and Ware have to get there and get there constantly, and not only get there but read the options nearly perfectly.
Right, they should be running around the tackles all day long. Michael Orr, of course, the one that's been talked about, the left side, the blind side for Cam Newton, so he'll likely be going up against DeMarcus Ware. Top of the 3 o'clock hour here on 90.3 WMSC up in Montclair, New Jersey. You're listening to now the last hour of our Super Bowl 50 pregame show here on Upon Further Review. This has been a really fun show, by the way. Thanks to all the guests who have came in and left. So you had Nick Francioso, our first guest, a very impromptu spot appearance from him. But you know, when you're hanging around the station, which a lot of our directors normally are, and you're talking about an event like the Super Bowl, which everybody, like I said, has some involvement in, or some interest in, I should say. It's only fitting to pull some people in and hear some different voices when it comes to the Super Bowl. In 15 minutes, you'll get to hear, a much different perspective as we get another college radio sports director on. This one from Indiana State, as I mentioned, Corey Clark will join us, so you'll have his perspective. So getting a lot of different perspectives. We'll have John Galletly and here with us in studio through the end here today. And then you had Sean McChesney giving his pick, our sports director here, so that was fitting. The Super Bowl feature that you've heard, I'll play that one more time for you guys in this last hour here later on, and you get some voices in that. Sean and I on the panel for that, along with our WMSC FM general manager Annabella Poland and one of our sports team members, Emma Sino. So a lot of good stuff there, a lot of good Super Bowl coverage here on WMSC all week long. As mentioned, Craig's Call tomorrow, Nick's Picks on Sunday, some shows in between there. Obviously, the Sunday morning show, the big one to, tune into, the one that Sean and I were a part of when we had Craig's Call during that time yesterday. So a lot to get to on that show. I might make an appearance on that if you want to tune into it anyway. It's a great show. Nick's a great host, talks about a lot of good things, and I'm sure we'll have a lot of good topics prepared for the Super Bowl. So to recap our X factors for the offense, defense on both sides of this game, Super Bowl 50, Broncos and Panthers. Carolina, we both on Cam Newton for the offensive player. Defensively, Thomas Davis, Wu Kuechly. I'm on Thomas Davis. Denver, Emmanuel Sanders, Peyton Manning. Offense, defense, DeMarcus Ware. And did you give your defensive X factor, John?
Yeah, it was Ware for Denver.
So Ware. So we're both in consensus on our picks for Cam Newton and DeMarcus Ware. We differentiate when we look at the Panthers' defense, Thomas Davis, Wu Kuechly. Denver's offense, Emmanuel Sanders, Peyton Manning. So, yeah, going to be a very interesting game, very fun game. And I guess let's move into our picks, because we have Corey coming on at 3:15. He'll likely be with us for a while, and we'll get his pick. And I don't want to have to rush our picks at the end of the interview. So we're going to step aside very quickly to get ready for our picks. And then on the other end of this break, you want to stay tuned. Super Bowl 50 picks coming your way from the host Sean Martin, from our guest John Galletly. On the other side of this break here on 90.3 FM WMSC, WMSCradio.com, we're picking the Super Bowl next. Without further ado, it's time now for our Super Bowl picks as we welcome you back in to Upon Further Review in our final hour here on WMSC FM, WMSCradio.com. We'll take you up until 4. You'll hear from Corey Clark at 3:15. But for now, as we have a few minutes until that interview, John Galletly here with us in studio. We'll get our picks, and so I'll start us off. You heard Nick's pick, it was the Panthers. You heard Sean's pick, it was the Broncos. So as far as show picks, but we have more coming, of course. I'm kind of the tiebreaker for now as the host here, and I'm going with the Broncos to break the tie, give them a 2-1 lead I'll give a score. I don't like to give scores at times, but this is the Super Bowl. 27-21, Denver in Super Bowl 50. I said earlier, I think that both these quarterbacks are going to have a turnover at some point in this game that might not immediately kind of jump off the page and say, okay, this is what's going to really cost them the game. It might not be an immediate game-changing turnover, but in the grand scheme of things, there's going to be a turnover that takes points off of the board for either side in this game. And the team that commits that turnover or the team that forces that turnover, I should say, is going to win this game. Whether it be Carolina shutting down a drive that looked promising for Peyton Manning, or Denver forcing a fumble from Cam Newton or something on a drive where obviously they could have gotten things going. That team is going to win this game. There's going to be a turnover that we get to go back and look at and say was very important. Like I said, it might not be one that jumps off the page. I'm not talking a Larry Brown Super Bowl 96 interception where you knew the game was over after a second pick. A turnover to get to look back after the game and say, oh, well, this did actually cost them the game if you look at how the rest of the thing played out. And I like the Denver defense to be able to get that turnover. That seems to be what they've done all postseason, is get big key turnovers. The fumble against the Steelers. Yes, it was more luck, but hey, they're there to recover it. They make the play. Peyton fires the offense up for their only touchdown that won that game. So the Denver's going to get that big turnover. They're going to win by 6, 27-21. And, a late winning drive for Peyton Manning is what I have. I know with the theatrics and all, I think that's what we're going to see play out. Peyton Manning getting a winning score for this Denver Broncos team after the Denver defense gives them some field position to work with, on multiple occasions throughout the game to get to 27 points, which won't be easy against Carolina, but they get there. The Panthers 21, my pick. Again, the Denver Broncos. Don, you can give your pick.
Well, to make it a tie again, I'm going to pick Carolina, as Sean, I think, was expecting me to. Personally, I see this being as a really similar matchup to Denver-Seattle of a couple years ago in the Super Bowl. I have a feeling this one's not going to be pretty. I'm fairly I honestly watch this is going to come back to bite me in the butt next week, but this is probably the most confident I've been in one Super Bowl team in years.
Whoa.
In all honesty, I think we're seeing a special team in Carolina. If they win the Super Bowl, I would consider them one of the greats of all time. So, I mean, personally, I feel like this is Carolina's game to lose. I feel like the defenses are pretty even on both sides, but I think Carolina has the offensive advantage that's going to make them become world champions.
That's a good topic that you brought up, a sub point there. Obviously, you're reasoning behind the Panthers as well with the defense making enough plays against a guy in Peyton that you don't know what to expect from, and stability at the quarterback position for the Panthers is obviously there with Cam Newton. So let's say your pick is right, the Panthers do win this game. Where will you rank? Where would you say this Carolina team stacks up against some of the all-time greats? We know the defense is there. Obviously, we know this defense is going to rank as one of the all-time best. But where does it's a hard team to rate because then you look at the offense and there's nothing that stands out a ton about this offense. None of these.
It doesn't need to stand out though. Some of the best all-time teams have average offenses.
Yeah, none of these receivers are going to be anywhere close to Hall of Fame, type players. Cam Newton still has a long way to go in his career, so if he wins, he's going to do it at an earlier stage of his progression. Jonathan Stewart, a solid running back, so you have a huge, great defense, a average offense that still makes a lot of plays, a Super Bowl trophy against the Broncos team that's very good. So a lot of moving parts to what the Panthers will put together if they get this win. A coach in Ron Rivera that's very good. And so, piecing all that together for their ranking, where would you find them?
It's funny because I think the last two Super Bowl champions have also been two of the best teams we've ever seen. Because I felt like last year's Patriots team was remarkable, and I never expected them to beat the defending champs, who I considered one of the greatest teams of all time the year before that. So I feel like we've been lucky to see. Yeah, it's been chalk, but we've really seen some of the best teams we've ever seen in the Super Bowl. And I think we're going to have the same discussion if Carolina wins. I look at them as very similar to 2013 Seattle. I would put them in that range. Maybe, I'm not sure if I'd say they're definitely better than that team, because this year's Seattle team was not nearly as good as 2 years ago. But at the same time, I think we're looking at a top 20 spot for Carolina if they win.
Yeah, definitely top 20 I think is fair. A chance to creep into the top 10. Of course, I'm not one that knows a ton about Super Bowl history. I know some Cowboys history and whatnot, but as far as the global, NFL scale on that note, I don't know a ton about some of these older teams, players here and there. I know who's in the Hall of Fame. You can look that up easily too. But, this Carolina team, they definitely jump out to you, at least in the Super Bowls I've watched, as one that could be a more complete team to win this, with an offense that, is led by Cam Newton making ridiculous throws, and a defense that just completely dominates you. They have everything you want to see in a Super Bowl, in a Super Bowl kind of enshrined team, and one that stands out from the others. We are now joined on the phone by WZIS Sports Director at Indiana State University, Corey Clark, to talk some Super Bowl with him now. Of course, we're sticking with the Super Bowl. What else will we be talking about to wrap up the show here? So, Corey, thanks for joining us.
Oh, dude, it's great to be on. Of course, like you said, what else would we talk about? Super Bowl 50 is coming along.
Exactly, and with the Super Bowl coming up being such a global event, as far as it's a universal thing that everybody knows, and even that theme has been heightened this year with it being Super Bowl 50 and more people recognizing the history of the Super Bowl and how great of a sporting event it's been. You've heard some of the features that we've played here on the station, the covers that we've had all week long, both on the air, on Twitter, and whatnot. Tell us a little bit about what you guys are doing over at WZIS as far as what you guys have put on the air for Super Bowl coverage. I'm sure you guys have a lineup of sports talk shows. I know you have one, of your own that's coming up tonight. But as far as other things that you guys have done on the radio station involving this game.
I like you mentioned it, Bud. Like tonight, I have my Sports Extra show. We call it Sports Extra. We usually hit college sports and all the sports around. What's the big news? But tonight it's a whole hour of strictly Super Bowl 50. We call it Sports Extra Super Bowl 50 edition. So that's something we're going to look at. We're going to have some big guests. We're actually going to have the writer from Indy Star, Bob Kravitz, on. He's going to talk a little Peyton Manning because, of course, this could be the big storyline. Peyton Manning, is he done or does he have another year, no matter what happens, if he wins or loses? And we got promos, PSAs all playing. We actually have a little Super Bowl party we're going to have on the game this Sunday here at the station, so anybody can come by. So if you ever want to listen to it, you can hit us up on our link at WISU.com, WISU Student Media. So right there, the live link. We got a lot of stuff playing. I mean, everybody does, don't they? I mean, Super Bowl parties galore around not even America, but around the world. It's the biggest event, I think, in my mind, in sports.
Yeah, it definitely is. And, last year was my first year watching the game on campus here, and to give a little bit of a shout out to our campus rec, they did a good job putting the game together, and having fans be able to watch it. Not a lot of difference between watching it there and at home, really. They had food and all that stuff, and I think Saul McChesney is still listening, so if he is, he'll appreciate that because he works over there. But, so you're right. College campuses should be covering the Super Bowl. You have students that are involved in the game in so many different ways, whether it's people who want to work in the sports broadcasting industry, they're, tied into the game. They're analyzing it from a TV perspective, a radio perspective, the game perspective. All these things tie into the Super Bowl. There's so many aspects of the Super Bowl, and, college radio is a great medium to promote some of those things.
Yeah, it's a big thing to go and promote it on. I mean, like you said, Bud, every college station, or not even a station, but every college, they should have some type of party. Like over here in Indiana, we have IU, Purdue, and I know they're doing something big as well. They're having their whole campus come out and watch it on a giant video screen. And then I know here at the Holman Center, there are people come at the Holman Center at Indiana State University. So at the Holman Center is our basketball arena, where, of course, Larry Bird once played. So that's how people know it mostly. And I think it's just a big event. Like, if you're not at home sitting with family, if you're not by yourself, or if you're not at college being able to watch it with a bunch of friends, I mean, what is it? It's still a great spectrum game. And the biggest thing, it's Super Bowl 50, the 50th anniversary, dude. Like, you cannot ask for anything better than that. I mean, you could if the Cowboys were in it, but we know that didn't happen this year. So
yeah, well, we'll both be writing about how to get them back on track for 2016. Maybe we'll get to some of those things at the end of the interview. But for now, let's stick with this game and move into now some of the aspects of it, because obviously you are a big football fan. You will be looking at this from a football perspective and breaking down these two teams, the Broncos, Peyton Manning, the Carolina Panthers, Cam Newton. So just what are your initial thoughts, some of the things that you are looking forward to in this game, some matchups, some players that you're looking at, and how you see this thing playing out?
Oh, yeah, we can go to look at some matchups. I mean, the Carolina Panthers, we've known them. I mean, did anybody think, I'm going to ask you, did you think they were going to go and play Arizona and just straight up blow them out?
I looked at that game. I looked at that game either going two ways. I said it on my show before the game that we were either going to get the Cardinals team that we saw against the Packers, and then the Panthers would blow them out, or we were going to get a Cardinals team that stepped up, and then I thought the Cardinals would win that game. So kind of a two drastic different things there. And we got the Cardinals team that we saw against the Packers, which was really bad. And, I think the Panthers are a world better than the Green Bay Packers. So did the blowout surprise me? Yeah, to an extent, because I thought we were going to get a different Cardinals team. But when you look at how the Cardinals played, of course the Panthers are going to take advantage of it.
Yeah, I mean, I feel bad a little for Carson Palmer. Turned an ACL a couple years ago. He made his way back. But if I had to choose two teams who belong in this Super Bowl right now, Panthers, Broncos, honestly, Cam Newton deserves it. He is the MVP in my eyes. He did way more than Tom Brady did this year. In my opinion, Tom Brady shouldn't have been playing, but that's a whole different subject. Cam Newton, the master of the dab. I mean, that's what people know him for. People, you either hate Cam Newton or you love Cam Newton. There is no in between. But you can't deny the fact the biggest thing here is Cam Newton versus Peyton Manning. Peyton Manning, is this the last time we will ever see Peyton Manning in an NFL game at all? Because he's still that one win shy of the record. Peyton Manning, he's known as the sheriff. A lot of things going down that way. It's the quarterback play, I think, is a big thing. Cam Newton versus Peyton Manning. Cam Newton has the edge there, but that's the thing. Peyton Manning doesn't have to be more Peyton Manning of sorts. I was talking to Bob Kravitz a couple of days ago, writer for the Indy Star, and he said Peyton Manning doesn't have to be the Peyton Manning we're used to, where he just goes down and wins games for him, takes them on game-winning drives. He just has to be, what his name, the sheriff. He has to be a contributor on the field, and he just can't make any mistakes. So, again, I call it, if he can at least throw 2 touchdowns and 0 interceptions, that's the thing. 0 turnovers. That's what's going to lead to Peyton Manning end up getting this win. And, I mean, I'm rooting for Peyton Manning because, of course, he used to play in Indy and everything like that. So I'm from Indy. I'm not a Colts fan, but Peyton Manning, man, he just did so much for the city. It's unreal. And he deserves not just the city, but he did so much for the NFL. And I honestly just think he deserves so much going down the long way. So we'll see that. Now, Cam Newton, he's the MVP in my eyes. The running game is a big factor. C.J. Anderson versus Johnson. If they rush, they are, I believe, 9-0 on the season if C.J. Anderson goes for 105 yards or above. So if he gets above that mark, remember that right there, buddy. If C.J. can get above that mark, they will win this game. Running game, and Peyton just not making any little mistakes. It comes down to it because, really, the defense is supposed to be the story, right? The Broncos, first half of the season, they never allowed anybody to score in the first quarter. Not 1 point. That's all they do now in the second half. So, yeah, it's a big defense matchup. Ooh, number 1 defense versus number 1 offense. But, man, the Broncos they haven't been the same defensive sort in the secondary. Like you saw, Tom Brady still threw on him. I mean, Tom Brady, he was bad in that game, all physically around. That's his fault. But I think, it comes down to anything. The biggest thing I'm going to talk about is the pass rush. Can Von Miller and the former Dallas Cowboy, DeMarcus Ware, get to Cam Newton and get him to really just get scared? Because we know he knows how to run. We know he knows how to throw. We know he knows how to dance. But can Von Miller and DeMarcus Ware get to him? And that's the big key in my eyes.
Yeah, that's what I've been saying about this Broncos pass rush. I pretty much said throw out whatever the defensive play call is in that huddle for both DeMarcus Ware and Von Miller, and just their job every single play in this game should just be to try to run around the tackles and go get to Cam Newton, because if Cam Newton has time to throw in this game, he will be able to take advantage of things. He'll find some soft spots in this Denver defense, and, ultimately this Panthers offense might put up enough points or more points than Peyton Manning can keep up with. So I think you're definitely right about the pass rush on both sides as far as, that's what to expect from the Broncos, and then the Panthers rush will be trying to get after Peyton Manning and making his life miserable, and if they're playing with the lead, that even heightens that. But you're also right about, the story is going to be written after this game from the quarterback perspective, no matter who wins. Either Peyton Manning wins the Super Bowl, and, the story is Peyton Manning won the Super Bowl, or Cam Newton wins it, and you kind of can write it from this perspective that you have a changing of the guard type thing, and, Cam Newton has taken that final step as far as everybody doubted him coming into the draft, and now here's the final step. Not only has he won his first Super Bowl, and he still has plenty of time to grow on a very good team to win some more, but he did it against a Peyton Manning-led team, the official kind of signal that the torch has been passed from an old-time veteran to a dynamic player in Cam Newton, who everybody loves to hate, but you won't be able to hate anymore when he's holding up the Lombardi Trophy.
No, that's true, too. It does come down to that storyline. Is Peyton Manning going to go out on top and ride the Sunway just like his old manager did in John Elway, and how Ray Lewis went out on top a couple years ago with Baltimore? Or is Cam Newton going to be the guy that nobody likes, or either they do like, and he's going to dab with the Lombardi Trophy in his hand? And we know that's what they're going to do. If the Panthers win this game, they're going to take that little picture of them, Cam, Jonathan Stewart, Colton Finnegan, Roman Harper, Ted Ginn, which Ted Ginn has surprised me, and that kid came out of nowhere to play anyway. But That's the question. Do you see Cam Newton winning, or do you see Peyton Manning winning? In the aspect, if it came down to a pick, I mean, I hope Peyton Manning wins, but Cam Newton has the versatility to just score points, and that's what it comes down to. But when's the last time we saw a number one offense versus number one defense in the Super Bowl? The Broncos and Seahawks. Who won that game? The defensive team, right? So maybe the defensive team and the Broncos wins this one, and a lot of people are hoping for that. But it all comes down to, are we going to see Newton dabbing? Are we going to see Peyton Manning riding off on that big old horse, retiring as a Colt, but going out as a champion with the Denver Broncos?
The white Bronco into the sunset, I guess you could call it. But yeah, I mean, defenses on both sides, you definitely can look at this and say, all right, number one offense, number one defense. But you also have to respect that both of these defenses are capable of making this a defense versus defense game, and we could be seeing a very low scoring game throughout the 4 quarters of Super Bowl 50 here. And what I've said also on the predictions I made here on the show today is that I think this game is going to come down to one big turnover. And you mentioned, Peyton Manning needs to avoid even having one turnover, so maybe it's Cam Newton that throws that big turnover or a fumble or something along those lines, a special teams turnover even. But I think it's going to come down to one big turnover that might not necessarily jump off the page right away as far as, this is the play that immediately costing the game, the direct impact. Yeah, this is, like a game-winning interception or something along those lines. It's going to be a turnover that after the game you have to look at and say, oh, that was really costly. Whether it be the Broncos marching down the field with some short passes, because they're not going to hit on many deep balls, and they better find a way to dominate time of possession if the run game isn't going to be there, like you said, which it needs to be. They better find a way to keep this offense on the field somehow, and the way you do that is you look at what the Patriots did against the Seahawks defense, which is just as talented as Carolina. You hit on these short passes, you keep the chains moving, and dink and dunk your way down the field. If they have a drive where it's, they pick up a few first downs, and then all of a sudden get derailed by an interception, that could be a very costly drive where you look at it and say points came off the board right there. And then the same goes for Cam Newton. If he throws a big pick on a drive where you thought the Panthers could have started to get something going, or Jonathan Stewart fumbles after the Panthers had some positive things going, then that's going to be costly to take those points off the board. So points could be at a premium. You mentioned the Broncos defense being spectacular. We talked a ton about the Panthers defense being just as good, and points are going to be at a premium potentially. One big turnover could make a difference in this game. Do you agree?
I mean, I do agree, and I think the biggest thing you just touched on was the turnovers. So thinking about it, here's my thing for you guys. Cam Newton, I think, honestly, he could possibly, and I think that's going to happen, he's going to get a little over his head. He's going to be spent too much time partying. He's going to basically be the Buffalo Bills back in the day where they went to 4 straight Super Bowls, lost to the Giants, lost to the Reds.
Will we find his helmet?
Yeah, lost to the Cowboys where he couldn't find his helmet. And he was just too busy partying all week, and they just weren't physically prepared. I think this is what's going to happen to the Panthers. That team likes to party too much. Cam Newton is going to get way over his head in this ball game, and he's going to make some mistakes that the Broncos are going to throw at him. I mean, look what Wade Phillips did. Former Cowboys coach, defensive coordinator for the Broncos. That dude threw so many different things at the Patriots and Tom Brady the other day. Bill Belichick didn't even know what to do. And that's how amazing it is. Wade Phillips is going to throw things at Cam Newton and throw things at Ted Ginn and Jonathan Stewart and Greg Olsen. Greg Olsen will not be a factor in this game because that's the only receiver he has to throw to, because remember, Kelvin Benjamin tore his ACL at the beginning of the year.
And that's when we all wrote off the Panthers, right?
Yep. And Ted Ginn is just a guy that, he's quick, and Cam Newton found a way to use him. So Wade Phillips is going to throw different things at this Cam Newton Carolina Panthers offense, and they're going to force turnovers. Now the thing is, can C.J. Anderson, can Ronnie Hillman get his head out of his butt? Because you remember the other day where it was the Broncos and Patriots early in the game, Peyton Manning threw a lateral pass to him, and he just watched the ball go down as a fumble. That could have cost the Broncos the game, and they got lucky that they can't have that on Super Bowl 50 in Santa Clara, California, and I'll tell you that that's not what's going to happen. So Peyton Manning, he's just got to be a sheriff and have 2 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, I'm hoping. And that's just my prediction. Throw for about 225 yards. That's all he needs to do, and have the running game take over and no turnovers. That's the key. Who's going to turn the ball over? Who's going to have the bonehead mistakes? And Peyton Manning knows how to take over these situations. So watch out for Peyton. He knows what to do in this situation. This is Cam's first Super Bowl. This is Peyton's third. Peyton would love to get that second ring, so Eli would quit bragging at Thanksgiving dinners. But that's the thing. I'm just saying, Cam Newton, he's going to be over his head. It's going to be his first one. It's going to be a learning experience for him, I hope. I think it's going to come down, like I said, the Buffalo Bills. Broncos win 24-21, but not because of a field goal kick to win the game by the Broncos. It's because they're going to pull Buffalo Bills, the Panthers are. They're going to go for a winning field goal, a tying field goal, and he's going to boot it to the right side. I'm calling. If you saw the 30 for 30, or you knew anything about the Buffalo Bills' 4 Super Bowl runs, you know that's what cost them either the first or second game. And that kicker was never known the same. So watch out for the Carolina Panthers to really make a mistake, either early or late in the game.
So your official pick here on the Par Photo Review, just to reiterate a bit, and it's an important pick because our first pick was made by our engineering director, Nick Franciosa, who admittedly doesn't know a ton about the game, but picked the Carolina Panthers. I then Sean McChesney, our sports director, was the next up on the picks. He picked the Denver Broncos to tie it up. I gave the Broncos a 2-1 lead just a few moments ago with my pick, but then John Goetley, who exited the studio, so we thank him for coming on, by the way. John Goetley, who exited the studio right before he left, tied this thing up for the Panthers. The last pick, of course, coming over the phone with Corey now. He takes the Denver Broncos, and on a field goal, on a late missed field goal. So that would certainly be an exciting game. Would be heartbreaking for Carolina. You know, there's two ways to look at it. If it does happen exactly like that, but number one is I'm going to be tweeting at you about 1 million times. Number two, you look at this Panthers team, and it's you'd love to say they're still going to be very talented. They can get back. They'll be fine. They'll get back to a game like this, but losing a Super Bowl in a close game does some weird things to franchises sometimes. Losing a game like
the Buffalo Bills.
Right, losing a game like that, it's not so easy to just get right back to it. I mean, the Bills did get those 4 straight. They didn't win them, and then they haven't been back. It's such a weird situation that they played through. But losing a game like that, if the Panthers should lose like that, would be tough for them to bounce immediately back in 2016. They'll still be talented. They'll win plenty of games, but to write this team in as another Super Bowl favorite for another season after a loss like that would definitely be interesting. So,
Cam can go win a Super Bowl. Cam can go win a Super Bowl after Romo and Witten get one. That's fine to me.
Yeah, that sounds good to me. And Romo and Witten hopefully can get one in 2016 because they don't have a ton of time left. But that sounds good to me. Let's move into briefly. Actually, you mentioned the Cowboys a few times. Obviously, 2 Cowboys fans here with you on the air, and both writing for InsideTheStar.com. You can check that out on Twitter at Cowboys Nation as well. And moving into some Cowboys stuff, segue away from the Super Bowl. We can come back to it if we want. Let's just talk a little bit about the outlook for this team for 2016, which starts with, of course, 2 big components of the offseason, free agency and the draft. So the draft, they'll have the 4th overall pick. That's their big asset, but we'll hold off on that for now. Draft coverage is coming to the show later on. For now, first thing they have to deal with is free agency with some big names going forward. What's kind of your optimal, I know you wrote about this, you can go over it now, your optimal offseason plan for who you want to see return to the Cowboys, what holes they need to fill, and who are some players that you think they can move on from and, end up having to replace, or a position they can move on from where they don't have to replace because they already have enough existing on the roster. There's some names like Greg Hardy, Morris Claiborne on the defensive side of things, and there's mostly defensive players that they'll be looking at. So what's your, going into the draft, I guess I should say, who do you want to see on the Cowboys who re-signed the contract, and who do you see kind of moving on from this team that you can live with?
All right, well, let's look at it. I mean, the big names: Morris Claiborne, Greg Hardy, Jeremy Mincy, a veteran, Rolando McClain, Kyle Wilbur, just down Lance Bar. I know I wrote about this earlier, and there might be a little change. I mean, we heard the source; they might not bring Greg Hardy back, right? So the last time, and then Des Bryant and Romo both showed respect for Greg Hardy, that they want Greg Hardy to be on this team. So here's my thing for you. The last time players and fans made a push for a player or coach, do you remember that? It was earlier this year for Chuck Pagano. Chuck Pagano, the Colts, everybody thought he was going to be fired, right?
Right.
Until the players and fans started making a push for him. So I still think Greg Hardy comes back. I mean, there you go, breaking news. Corey thinks Greg Hardy's coming back, but that's fine. Morris Claiborne, he's going to resign because you know why? They'll have money after they cut Brandon Carr. Brandon Carr's not coming back. There's no way he can do that. So Morris Claiborne, Brandon Carr will come back. Brandon Carr won't be coming back, And I think Rolando McClain will sign a 1-year deal. Jeremy Mincy will have to come back, won't come back because of the re-signing of Greg Hardy. But if Greg Hardy actually doesn't come back, they'll re-sign Jeremy Mincy to a 1-year deal, I think. And Lance Dunbar, I think that's the biggest weapon right here in this free agency thing. And people just look at him as a little guy. You can get that dude on for a 4-year, $5 million, $6 million deal, and I wouldn't have a problem with it. Lance Dunbar, when healthy, did you see him and Romo finally got a little bit of a relationship going, and they finally started to use Dunbar a lot more than they used to. So with McFadden in the backfield, being the fourth leading rusher in the NFL, and could have been a Pro Bowl player, but he wasn't. McFadden had over 1,000-yard season, running behind that good offensive line that eventually is going to be even more younger when Chaz Green takes over Doug Free's spot in a couple years, I believe. But and Lance Dunbar, he'll come back. So those are some players I see coming back. And then just who's going to walk? That's tough, but I have a feeling Mackenzie Bernardo's not going to come back. And, I mean, there's not a lot of people I think is just going to be gone that are important to this team. Why? Because Jason Garrett, Jerry Jones, Stephen Jones have always said, dude, that the biggest free agents are their own players. So instead of going out trying to get these big names that everybody wants, hashtag Miller or Eric Berry or something.
I'd like some Lamar Miller in this over in Blurdo. Just going to throw that out there.
It's not going to happen, though. Why waste some money on that? I mean, that's just my opinion. People have their wants. But instead of going to get a Lamar Miller, we'll spend the money on Tremaine Johnson from St. Louis, who had an outstanding year. Wasn't supposed to be a starter. And Tremaine Johnson, in my opinion, will be the fill void for Brandon Carr. And then the secondary will get some improvement from the draft, which I won't tell you my pick yet until you ask me, bud. But I think you already know. Claiborne coming back, and I think they go sign Tremaine Johnson, Eric Berry, and Lamar Miller. Guys, get that out of your head. That's not going to happen, I don't think. We have Darren McFadden. Why waste money? McFadden had a great year, 1,000-yard rusher.
He only has 1 year left on the deal.
Who does? But we can go draft a running back. And coaches have always said, go draft running backs because even Brian Broaddus said, go draft a running back instead of to sign one. There's good running backs from UCLA, from Arkansas. There's good ones that you can get in the third or fourth round. And that's just my opinion, which I think it's going to come down to. So I don't see any major names walking away except for the little ones. James Hanna, I think, comes back because he's the big component to blocking tight ends you need.
Yeah.
Gavin Escobar got a 1 year. Guy has 1 more year left on his contract, so we'll discuss that in coming months or whatever. But I think that's just how it stands for free agency wise. Go get Tremaine Johnson and maybe some kind of pass rusher that's not that expensive to go along with this team, and I think they'll be okay because this team, they were just 12-4 the other not this past year, but the year before, and the whole Dez crap that went down. I don't want to get into it, but I mean it was a catch. By the way,
it's pretty simple.
Yeah, and I think Morris Claiborne and him will come back. And a lot of people don't think Claiborne will come back, but he even said it. A new identity would be Dallas because he wants to come back. He's playing better. So those are just my picks on the free agency. Tremaine Johnson, some pass rusher, nothing big. Don't expect Lamar Miller. Don't expect Eric Berry because that stuff's not going to happen. We don't have that kind of money.
Yeah, Jermaine Johnson would definitely be an interesting addition. You know, I agree that it might even be a better addition than Lamar Miller because you lose a guy in Brandon Carr, you're starting Morris Claiborne and putting a lot of faith in him, and then you get a guy like Johnson across from him. So it doesn't completely.
You have Scandrick coming back.
Yeah, and you have Scandrick, so it doesn't completely tighten up your secondary, but it does. It goes a long way with Scandrick, Johnson, and Claiborne and Byron Jones at the safety to improve a secondary that would finally get to move on from Brandon Carr in that scenario. So you alluded to the draft and were begging me to ask you about your pick here, and you're right that I do know. I think I know who you're gonna say here. So I guess best way to pose this question is this: you're on the clock at 4. You're Jerry Jones or you're Will McClay. You get to put in the draft card. What name are you putting on it for the Cowboys? Are you going with a quarterback? Is the quarterback that you want there? Is it on the board? If not, where else are you looking? There's obviously other talent to be had in that spot, whether it be a guy like Jalen Ramsey, who else? A guy like Joey Bosa, Vernon Hargraves. There's a lot of names outside of the quarterbacks to be had at that spot. And, who would you lean towards in this scenario?
All right, well, I'm on the clock, and I know what you want. I know what a lot of people want. They want a quarterback. So I'm not giving you a quarterback, and I've said this from day one.
Jerry.
Yeah, I said it from day one. I want Florida State defensive back Jalen Ramsey. And that's who I'm going to pick. I'm going to play him in the safety role with Barry Church. And Wilcox will play special teams. He'll be a backup. But with Jalen Ramsey, can you imagine it, man? Tremaine Johnson, Morris Claiborne, Orlando Scandrick, Barry Church, and Jalen Ramsey. That just took our secondary from dead last to almost the top 10, in my opinion. So, sorry, you're not getting your quarterback. I don't believe in wasting a first-round pick on a starting quarterback that's not even going to start yet. And honestly, I think Jared Goff will be gone anyway to the Browns. I don't want Carson Wentz at 4th overall. If you watch him in the Senior Bowl, I mean, I'm in love with this kid. I would take him in the second round without thinking about it. but he may not fall. I just don't see him, or I don't like Braxton Lynch either. So Goff will be gone, and even if Goff's there at 4, I'm sorry, I'm taking Jalen Ramsey all the way, and I've said it from the beginning.
So you don't think that? I mean, I like Ramsey, I do. You don't have to dive too deep into his film to, see the impact he makes on a game. He's just a guy who makes plays, and I respect that. Everybody can get behind a guy in the Cowboys secondary that makes plays because they've lacked that for so long, and we got a little glimpse of it with Byron Jones. But is there any concern that, with a team that does not expect to be picking in the top 5 anytime soon after this, this number 4 overall pick should be the only crack they get at this for years to come, that when we look at this 5-10 years from now, when Jalen Ramsey, if he is the pick, may or may not still be playing, hopefully he is, obviously, when we look at this and say that the Cowboys, really change the future of their franchise with the 4th overall pick, that's what teams in the top 5 are trying to do, change their franchise, for the future, for the better. When we look at this, is there any concern that, drafting a safety that high doesn't do that, or, are you sold that Ramsey is definitely going to be a guy who will be here for years to come in Dallas and a guy that will help us, get to where they want to be?
Let me tell you this. Jerry Jones is your GM, your owner. Just be honest with yourself. How much time do you think Jerry Jones has to live? Not trying to be rude. He doesn't have 10 years under his belt probably, right? Or even as an owner.
Right.
So, my guess, Jerry Jones is trying to win now. He wants to go out. He wants to win. He wants Romo and Witten to get a belt. He wants those guys to get something. I understand a lot of people want to look for the future, but we're in the position where we don't have to. We were just 12-4. We could be the top team in the NFC if we wanted to. The way this NFC East is, NFC Least, excuse me, but when the Cowboys are healthy, they're not. So, yeah, I'm still sold on Jalen Ramsey. I think we will get our quarterback. You don't have to get a top-tier quarterback in the first round anyway. Look at Tom Brady. Look at Russell Wilson. Look at all these other guys that didn't go in the first round. I get it, but I trust Will McClay in this process. If he happens to take a quarterback, not going to be angry. I'm going to want Jalen Ramsey, but it's really going to tick me off when I go and watch Jalen Ramsey make all these plays and being a Hall of Fame safety somewhere else, knowing that I wanted him. So a lot of people want to Broadus like Jalen Ramsey. A lot of people like Jalen Ramsey. So just a name to look out for. I get you don't want to look in the future. We don't have to do that. We want to win now, and I want Romo to get a belt. I want Romo to hold that ring and a Lombardi trophy up and say, you know what, to all those haters, Romo haters out there, because from day one, they have not let that kid breathe. And Romo, statistically, the top 5 quarterback in NFL history. So.
Yeah, that would definitely be nice. I'm right there with you, obviously, as a fellow Cowboys fan, that whatever it takes, whether it be the quarterback pick this year and just having other guys step up and staying healthy, or, bringing in a guy who Ramsey to help you win in 2016, whatever it takes.
And one more thing, like picking a quarterback, that's not going to help you win this year. Sorry.
Oh, I mean, it might if Romo goes down, but I think
I don't see. When's the last time a rookie quarterback won a Super Bowl?
Yeah, I don't think it's ever happened. I think the consensus is, though, that, come playoff time, even, let's say Romo misses a few games, if the Cowboys can still find a way of their backup to stay afloat, which, they didn't do at all this year.
And there's still valuable backups in free agency, or you could still get one in the draft. They can make one. I promise you, even if they draft a quarterback in the 2nd or 3rd round, they're still going to go get a veteran quarterback, like maybe Ryan Fitzpatrick, who's a free agent, or others. Chase Daniel, I really like from Kansas City. I really like that kid. Remember that name, Chase Daniel. He's young. He's in the backup there. I just don't want another Brandon Weed and Matt Castle situation.
No.
Okay? Yeah. But honestly, in the end, it might have worked out because Romo wasn't going to be able to lead us to the Super Bowl anyway with his injuries. He's fully healthy now, and hopefully he'll be fully healthy by the time the season starts, and everything will. I understand. The last 3 years he hasn't played 16 games, but if he can do that one time and just get to a Super Bowl. Dude, you be you. You want to retire? You can retire. I want you to win a Super Bowl, and I want the Cowboys to go out on top so bad in my lifetime. Because I was born in '96. I was born when they won one. I want to see it, and I want to look at everybody around me and say, that's what I'm talking about. I want to say, you like that? You like that?
You like that? But, yeah, definitely, things to look forward to for the Cowboys. Hopefully we get to watch them in the Super Bowl sometime soon. For now, with Tony Romo, we get to watch Peyton Manning and Cam Newton, 2 of the best quarterbacks from this season. And on the Broncos side, one of the best quarterbacks of all time when it's all said and done. So plenty of storylines every year for the Super Bowl that automatically just jump out at you. This one more so than ever. Corey, do you have any kind of final thoughts you want to say on Super Bowl 50 coming up on Sunday?
Peyton Manning, the Sheriff, go do your thing and go out on top, baby. I'm rooting for you. That's all I got to say. And go Cowboys.
Go Go Cowboys is right, and a lot of people will be rooting for Peyton Manning. Corey's pick, of course, once again, was the Broncos. So our final poll results for this February 3rd edition of Upon Further Review Super Bowl picks. It is a 3-2 advantage out of 5 picks for the Denver Broncos. Myself, Corey Clark, and our WMSC FM sports director, Saul McChesney, are all on the Denver Broncos. The Carolina Panthers picks go to my roommate, John Galletley, and our engineering director, Nick Franciosa, who basically just picked him because his high school mascot was the Panthers. But, it's a solid pick because they are the favorite, and, they easily could win this game. But I'm on the Broncos. My score was 27-21. I like the defense to get a turnover, Peyton Manning to ride off into the sunset, and, I think you do too. And the next year we'll watch Tony Romo do it. How's that sound, Corey?
Man, it sounds pretty good to me, man.
All right, he's a sports director at Indiana State's FM radio. He also does some stuff for ESPN3.com, so you're going to want to check him out. Corey Clark, he's on Twitter at WZIS_Corey Clark, so check him out on there, talk to him there. He's a good guy, I swear. That's about it. Corey, thanks for joining us.
All right, man, it's been a pleasure.
Thank you. All right, wrapping things up now on Upon Further Review. Saul Martin back with you, and Tropical Storms is coming up next here with Justin Frasca in studio getting ready for his show. And like I said, not much to talk about with the Super Bowl. We kind of exhausted that with all the guests we had in the interview we just had with Corey. So before he comes on and does his thing, we threw a headset on him and we're going to get his Super Bowl pick. So Justin, like I said, like I told Corey in his interview, it's a big pick because he gave the Broncos a 3-2 advantage, but now with a last-minute pick that I didn't see coming here to the show, you have a chance to either tie this thing up for the Panthers at 3-3 or give the Broncos a definitive win. So let's see which way you're going here for Super Bowl 50.
I'm totally going to be going for the Panthers, and this is just based on past Super Bowls. The Broncos have gotten to the mountain, they've reached the top, and they've done their own thing. But like I said to you before, you can only reach the top so long before you're going to start to fall off, and then that's going to be the thing right there. And the Panthers are just going to come through. I just know it.
Yeah, I'm not going to be surprised either way with how this game plays out, which I think will make for an entertaining game because you're not going to sit back and continue to expect one thing to happen that you might not ever get. You kind of sit back and say, no matter which way this thing goes, there's a case for either team to win this, of course.
I mean, the unsung hero of the Super Bowl is not either the Panthers or the Broncos. It's the ads that get placed on during that.
Oh, yeah, the commercials have been great. That's why we had Nick Franciosa in the studio. We just to talk about commercials pretty much. It was a nice breakup in the middle of the show.
I mean, that's the one thing that I think everyone looks forward to. Like, you're going to get the people that are, dead set on football that are going to be watching the game. You're going to get the people that are dead set on the halftime show. And then you're going to get the people that are obsessed with the commercials.
And it's a Super Bowl. No. This is Super Bowl 50. The NFL decided to change the logo for the first ever time, get away from the Roman numerals, and go with the gold number 50. So it's a historic event. You're going to see all the MVPs walked out onto the field from the previous 49 Super Bowls, which means Peyton Manning's going to be introduced. I doubt he'll walk out because he doesn't want to be, he probably wants to be on the field with the rest of his team when they go out. But Peyton Manning will be introduced when he won MVP with the Colts, as well as the other 49 Super Bowl MVPs, Malcolm Butler, all that stuff. And, it'll be Super Bowl 50 on Sunday. So, once again, thanks for tuning in to Upon Further Review. Justin, thanks for giving your impromptu pick. And now I'll
no problem.
Get out of your way, go head out to class, and let you take over for the next 3 hours here on WMSC. And so that will take you up to 7 o'clock. You want to stay tuned for that?
Well, no. We're only going to be going until 5:45.
Or that. All right.
Game today.
Oh, wait, true. Yep. Live sports broadcast. So basketball coming your way from William Patterson tonight on WMSC Sports, so stay tuned for that. But for now, you get Tropical Storms, which will be starting after this.
All right.
Keeping up with the latest in sports every week can be harder than it looks. That's why you should tune in to 90.3 WMSC and WMSCRadio.com every Wednesday from 1 to 4 p.m. You hear me, Saul Martin, talk about everything from professional to high school sports. Did I say talk about? I meant mostly yell about. Anyway, hope to hear from you soon every Wednesday right here on 90.3 WMSC. Be sure to follow the show on Twitter at UFRWMSC.